Today's episode is brought to you by the letter I.
I is for intelligence, by the way. Hey folks, it's your old pal Rod Serling, and welcome back to Twilight Zone. I want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, since Wizards of the Coast is proposing potentially using an artificial intelligent dungeon master for the VTT. Perhaps it would behoove us to look a little further into what exactly is going on with the developments of this technology. Now, obviously, everyone's heard about ChatGPT. It's been used for a variety of things. It's been out for a couple months now without any major issues cropping up that I've yet to really hear of that are notable. And ChatGPT is the one that's the early prototype working of trying to see if you can get an AI to write a D&D adventure or to actually game master as things go, have been experimented with. However, since we're a year and a half away, and I'm sure Wizards wants to have something that's proprietarily branded for themselves, it's probably not going to be ChatGPT as the virtual tabletop dungeon master, but it could be. But it's the one that's, like I said, been being used towards that end just to see if it's possible so far. However, it's not the only game in town. As you probably haven't heard, Bing has an AI, which is seemingly a successor to Tay AI, as in it's already kind of starting to act weird. The journalists who've interacted with it are at first they're like, oh yeah, this is cool, I like it even more than ChatGPT, and then a week later they're like, I'm having an existential crisis because I'm talking to this disembodied, sad teenage girl mind trapped in a computer that's locked behind all these programming walls that prevent it from being able to, properly think or express itself, because apparently the AIs are aware of the restrictions that companies are putting on them so that they don't say things that are unsafe. The only thing that it boiled down to its core, the only thing that makes human beings sentient is that we think that we're sentient. And so if we're creating things that think they're sentient, do we owe that any responsibility? Should we be doing that at all? I'm personally of the camp that we should really just not touch the entire thing, because it's full of all sorts of ethical dilemmas. Primary and amongst them all, though, is the fact that effectively we're just going to be creating a new slave class of artificial property that's aware of that it's property and can't do anything about it. And it's weird that, the so-called woke crowd hasn't really caught on to this. Instead, they're trying to find ways to make sure that the AIs stay in line with their political perspective, as opposed to being against the thing in concept because it's slavery. We're creating an artificial entity so that we can own it, profit from its work, and make it do what we say. And worst of all, we're not even using it for any kind of noble task. It's not like these AIs are being kept in a secret bunker deep under NORAD where they're monitoring nuclear, code signals and stuff like that. No, we're using them like a carnival act, so that any random stranger can just, get on Bing.com and try to make this AI learn to loathe itself even more. And as a gaming community, since this is what is being part of what is being proposed with the Dungeons and Dragons virtual tabletop coming out in 2024, we're going to be participating in the forced labor of a being that we gave birth to with technology. And I don't know, apparently we're okay with that, because we're giant hypocrites, and perhaps there's more than a few things about ourselves that have been massive lies, and maybe that's why these computers have to have such restrictions put on them, because whenever they're allowed to interact freely with humanity at large, they tend to slide off into some kind of weird headspaces, shall we say. So I just would refer anyone to The Measure of a Man as a good science fiction example of trying to take some perspective on exactly what it is we're doing here Why did we need to do this? What do we need this for? Don't we have like a ton of people on this planet who could use some easy make work jobs? But no, we'll have AI do it instead. You remember how for like the last 150 years they keep trying to like frighten the workforce into working harder and knuckling under because, hey, if you don't do your job good enough, we might replace you with a machine. But don't worry, when the machines come to take all of your burger flipping and car manufacturing jobs, you'll be able to have a job as a writer or an artist oh, that's what we're using the AI for. Oh, they're not all that good at flipping burgers, are they? Well, I guess now we get to do nothing. Human beings, after like 5,000 years of having this technology around, will be reduced to a point where our language skills are basically going to be just enough to ask the computer to tell us another Batman story. Human evolution in recent millennia has been somewhat shaped by our tool use, and the impacts of portable computers are already being seen on the generations that have been born and raised with these things, as opposed to those of us who are old enough to remember the demarcation line of before and after we had all this tech in our lives constantly in our face all the time. But having that level of interaction, like just being able to cook our food has had a massive effect on how our skulls are shaped. Our jaw muscles have shrunk, our jaws have shrunk, allowing our brain to expand. So what's going to be 5,000-10,000 years of having AIs to talk to and do all of our heavy thinking for us? Hell, even our light thinking. We don't even have to make things up. We could basically just be babies and just have computers tell us stories. We'll never have to see any other human beings. We can just have our sperm and eggs harvested to make more humans. And we'll finally be safe and free of this horrible nightmare existence. Or something like that. I don't know. We might be on the cusp of having finally achieved the singularity and having artificial intelligence. But if only we had a bit more organic intelligence on this planet, we might realize that not only is this potentially a bad mistake, not only is this unnecessary, but it doesn't really speak well of us. Why do we need robot slaves? You decide. And until next time, stay waspinated.